Hi, today I'm going to tell you about a movie called Elena in a Box. Let's get started. Dr. Nick is an excellent surgeon who deserves the recognition of colleagues. A man has everything. He is beautifully built. He has a magnificent big house inherited from his mother, and a beautiful girl who works with Nick in surgery. But all this fades in the eyes of the guy, because he has a goal, beautiful Elena, with which Nick spent the night after the party. Nick goes to the bar after work to have a drink with his friend Lawrence, but when he sees Elena there, the guy quickly says goodbye and goes home. Just at this time Anne returned from work with several packages for the upcoming dinner, the first romantic dinner in Nick's new home. The woman happily announced her plans, and while she stayed to set the table, Nick decided to take an evening run. The legs immediately carried the man to the house of the bright beauty. Climbing a tree under the window, Nick began to watch Elena pour a drink into her glass and walk around the room in one bathrobe. But then another character, Ray, appeared in the frame. Nick quickly descends from the tree, and while he is running, a picture of what is happening in Elena's bedroom is played in his head in the smallest detail. A man runs to a payphone and calls Lawrence to tell about his experiences. Lawrence is worried about the morale of his friend. After a single night with such a beauty, he constantly talks about her as if she were his property. Nick pretends to come to his senses so that his friend does not suspect anything wrong. But Nick himself is already hatching a plan in his head how to win a girl. In the evening, he goes to the flower shop and signs Elena a card with an invitation to a housewarming party, which he decided to arrange just now, then sends it along with a bouquet of flowers, and he goes home, where Anne is still waiting for him for dinner. Only, on the way to the house, the doctor breaks again at Elena's windows and accidentally falls asleep in the car. Waking up at night, Nick rushes to his girlfriend, but she did not wait for the guy and fell asleep right in the living room. Nick is not very upset about what happened. He sits down at the phone and starts calling Elena. The girl does not pick up the phone for a long time, because she is still busy in bed with Ray, but since the calls do not stop, she decides to stop and answer. The girl hears silence in the handset, and a second later the beeps at all. A housewarming party is taking place at Nick's house. Anne is discussing her expectations with a friend. Since the guy threw such a holiday, it means he is preparing to propose to her. But very soon it becomes clear that the celebration was not prepared for her. When Elena arrives, the doctor does not take his eyes off her, not even shy about the presence of the bride. Elena behaves coldly and aloof and quickly switches her attention to the young guy, making Nick nervous, and then completely throws off her dress. And then she completely throws off her dress in revealing underwear and starts splashing in the fountain. Everyone present can't take their eyes off the extravagant beauty. Anne also pays attention to her, understands that her man has something to do with Elena, and she asks the question head on, but the doctor does not even try to correct the situation, even accidentally calls Anne by the name of Elena. The next day, Elena calls Nick and demands to take her purse to the airport, which she forgot at the event, since she left with a young guy. The doctor clings to this opportunity and is not only late for the airport, but also takes a notebook out of her purse to lure the beauty to her. Elena, angry at the man, showers him with all sorts of statements, but goes to his house to pick up her thing. Seeing the notebook on a platter, the girl hurries to catch the plane and as soon as possible to break up with an inadequate friend, but as soon as she goes out on the road, an SUV takes off from there at breakneck speed and the screeching of brakes is heard. At the clinic, everyone is discussing Drive. Nick's disappearance and assumes that he has found another job. One of his colleagues comes to his house to take a letter of recommendation. Nick kindly greets a friend, but does not undertake to promise him recommendations until the visitor witnesses a terrible picture. Elena is sitting on the bed in the back bedroom, or rather, on the upper part of her body. Nick begs his friend not to tell anyone about what he saw, and in return for this he will give him his position. Elena can't remember what happened to her. Nick avoids talking about the accident, tries to surround his beloved with care. He builds a throne for Elena in a wheelchair so that she can move around the house, but Elena is not ready to accept her helplessness yet. Lawrence arrives at Nick's house. A friend rings the doorbell, knocks and looks in the windows, but the doctor hides and does not make a sound, realizing that the man will report to the police if he sees a girl lying down. Elena begins to move around the house on her throne and gradually comes to her senses. The girl tries to convey to Nick that nothing has changed in their relationship. Despite the fact that he thus possessed his beloved, she still considers him not a full-fledged man and regrets meeting him. Ray tries to find Elena. He leaves his phone number at the grocery store and asks the seller to tell him the news about the girl, if anything. Anne can't stand being separated from the guy and comes to his house. Nick desperately tries to hide the stroller with Elena and does it so that she can't scream. As a result, Anne is going to open the door with her key and go inside. The doctor manages to hide her captive at the last moment. Anne hugs the man, kneels in front of him, and from the threshold, he tries to make peace, pulling off extra clothes from himself and a friend, but as soon as she turns out to be in her underwear, Nick does not restrain his delight from joy, without even starting. Elena sees all this through a small crack in the door, and a grin freezes on her face. Nick takes Anne out of the house without explaining anything to her, and on the threshold notices that in addition to his obsessive girlfriend, Ray is watching him. To get rid of people's suspicions, Nick calls a flower shop and orders an expensive bouquet of flowers with a note to Elena's address. Left alone with the prisoner, Nick listens to her taunts about his male inferiority. In the morning, the doctor prepares another surprise for Elena, which, in his opinion, will make the girl even more beautiful. After returning from a run, Nick approaches an improvised altar strewn with white flowers, in the center of which there is a drawer covered with silk, and in it a pillow on which Elena is sitting, but now without hands. Nick takes care of someone who was once a beautiful full-fledged girl. He feeds Elena with a spoon, combs her hair and does makeup. To all requests to release her, Nick replies that no one will take care of her the way he does. To prove his worth as a man, Nick invites a night girl and performs so that Elena can watch them through the doorway. After the employee leaves, the guy carries his beloved to the table and starts kissing her, and to please her, the doctor orders drinks and ripe pomegranates at the grocery store. The seller remembers that such a set was always in Elena's order, and calls Ray to report his suspicions. Ray arrives at the surgeon's house and sees through the window how he kisses Elena, covering her with his body. A man with a passionate monologue enters the back door and to his horror discovers what happened to his girlfriend. There is a scuffle, during which Ray touches a stone statue, and it falls on Nick. The doctor wakes up in the hospital. All the doctors are scurrying around him, and even Anne comes to visit. He is informed that Elena is in another ward, and he immediately runs there to visit her. An absolutely whole girl with minor injuries after the accident is sleeping in a hospital bed and, taking her hand, Nick realizes that he dreamed it all. That's all for today. Subscribe and put likes if you want more similar videos.